escape engines on the payload fairing. And after that, after the fairing is jettisoned, so it's already in an almost vacuum condition, and if anything wrong happened, the spaceship can use its own engines to leave the launch vehicle.
So is this escape tower going to be ejected even before the booster?
Before the fairing?
Actually, it is the
Before
first
the booster,
separation.
yes. So
The first separation will be the jettisoning of the escape tower happened about 2 minutes after launch.
We will see that in just a few moments. We're getting really close. A little more than 5 minutes to go. The final liftoff.
The astronauts are still, I think they're still watching their
flight manuals.
Just reading their flight manual. They just need to repeat that again and again.
I wonder how they feel at this moment. I mean, going into space would be the lifetime dream for every astronaut, right? I guess there will be boundless joy for.
Is there any other instrument that has been connected on those on the body of those astronauts?
Exactly. So they will monitoring the parameter, the biological parameters of their body. It
so
will be also
heart rate,
Yeah. If they don't feel not better, we can stop the whole procedure to deal with that.
In fact, we monitor this all the time.
That's right. I figure.
T-minus 5 minutes.
But from our earlier experience, the figure can show that all of those astronauts have been well trained and they can keep pretty calm even before the launch.
Usually they are very, very calm during the launch.
They're really
even
calm.
during any emergencies.
That's right.
Life-threatening emergencies. They're trained
they
for
were
that.
still very relaxed in their postures, and now they're getting ready for the launching position. So they have folded their legs to their appropriate position. So even 5 minutes before, they were still, like relaxing.
That's right.
Checking their seat belts, checking their knee guards.
They're going to put down everything and ready for the launch in 2 or 3 minutes.
And we're getting really close. That's the live image from the control center at the June17 Satellite Launch Center. There you see Vice Premier Han Zheng watching this launch among the audience. This is a live picture coming from the Beijing Aerospace City. Vice Premier Han Zheng among other senior leaders and officials. There you see Central Military Vice Chairman of the Central Military Chief there. That was Zhang Youxia, you just saw there. So these are top level officials. They're watching. That really speaks volume about how important Beijing sees this mission.
And we just realized it's a good occasion and good timing for celebrating the party's 100 years.
It's a moment of pride too. This is Xu Qiliang, the other vice chairman of Central Military Commission. He is watching this launch very closely at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, among other leaders. So we've got 2 groups of high-level leaders watching this launch from Beijing and also at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. All right, 3 minutes to go till launch. And it's interesting, it's usually quiet at launch control around this time as we're getting close to time zero. Not much calm going on there except for a few simple commands and the final countdown, and that's because the final status checks by now has all been completed, and that's a good sign. You don't want to hear too much noises around this time.
Yeah, they have a set of code of conduct is already undergoing, so everything went well. So everything being quiet. If anyone raises a voice, that means there's an anomaly.
I believe at this moment, the electrical supply has already transferred from ground to the interior batteries.
2 minutes to go. A nerve-wracking moment, I mean, for the flight crew, for the whole launch team, and for all of us who are watching. As much as this is a moment for excitement, it's also a moment for anxiety, isn't it?
And also the launching schedule is really tight for the China Space Station program. And
Yeah,
we
this year, next
witnessed
year.
the first core module launch in the end of the April, and we saw the cargo ship
Yeah.
just launched to the orbit just following maybe it's a few weeks later.
Even the cargo ship was delayed for a
Delayed.
week, but was successfully launched
Yeah.
into
That's
space.
right.
Yeah.
And right now, for the astronauts who are waiting there for launch, there's really not much they can do for this period of time. They're strapped in, things are out of their hands. They're relying on their team to get them out there safely.
Yeah.
There we see the crew of Shenzhou-12 mission in the middle, Nie Haisheng, the flight commander, and alongside with him are the flight engineers, Liu Boming and Tang Hongbo.
Yes.
All right, that's the call out. T minus 60 seconds. An incredible moment to witness.
You can
Truly
see
a
the
majestic view.
astronauts are ready, in their ready position.
Yeah, they're ready.
Yeah, and soon we're going to see the umbilicals being detached. That's going to happen from any moment from now.
The arms will be finally
There you see
attached.
the retractable arm has been rolled back.
Wow. A historic moment is coming. And
30 seconds till launch. The first crewed mission destined for Tiangong, China Space Station on board the Shenzhou-12 spacecraft. Less than 20 seconds to go.
and the Shenzhou-12 will be Nie Haisheng's third space out.
That's right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. There you see the booster kicking in. And liftoff.
Liftoff.
Just spectacular. The launch of Shenzhou-12 spacecraft heading to the Chinese space station. The divine vessel shipping away from its spaceport. Its destination, the Heavenly Palace. 3 astronauts on board the Shenzhou-12 spacecraft will be ferried to the core module of China's space station. And of course, you're hearing the voices from the launch team providing tracking status, saying things are going good. That's the sound we'd like to hear. We have different ground tracking stations.
Okay, it's pitch over.
ground.
Change its direction of flight.
All right. And
Wow,
that's
this
the
is-
view of the side boosters. You're looking down at the tail of the rocket.
This is a camera on the second stage.
Major event coming up is the separation of the escape tower, right? That's going to happen about
Yes.
2 minutes into the
10
flight.
minutes.
And because the sky today is really clear, so we have a beautiful view.
Clear
of the,
visuals.
Yeah, we can have the clear visual of the rockets coming, the
And
launching off into the sky, and
right, the
That's-
astronauts, they look fine to me. They look okay.
yeah.
And keep in mind, the rocket has 4 side boosters. Those are the 2 out of the 4 you're watching there.
So is that supposed to be the period that the astronaut feel very uncomfortable?
Yes,
It's
that's
speeding
the
up?
very,
It's
very
speeding up?
beginning period.
They
Yes.
were already experiencing the G load.
Yeah.
All right.
When we'll see peak G load?
The separation before the first stage.
Okay, so
Alright,
we're
so
not
it's not
there
coming
yet.
yet.
Yeah.
The
That's-
G-forces are
the
increasing.
First thing would be the separation of the strap-on boosters.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
the first one will be
the
setting of
escape
the
tower.
emergency escape tower.
If everything goes
Oh.
right, we're going to see the
Several
escape tower
seconds.
jettison
we
in a
won't be
few
able
moments.
to see it on the camera because this camera was looking down to the strap-on boosters.
Oh, that's the 3D
simulation.
animation.
Yeah.
That animation is based on
Yeah, that's the
real-time
escape
telemetry.
tower.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
that's the
escape tower.
separation of the escape tower that we just saw there. And you heard the call out.
And
That's
then
the infrared
150
image.
seconds will be the separation of the 4 boosters.
A great infrared image showing you a successful separation of the escape tower, really indicating the low-level flight, the initial stage of the flight went well.
That's in fact an infrared camera that is looking at the rocket itself.
Right.
So this is the video.
Again, the side
It will
boosters.
show
Coming up
separation.
next is
Yeah.
Booster
the
separation.
booster separation.
And first stage,
Yeah,
oh,
that's-
Great.
there you
that's
see
separation. Yes.
the booster
The
separation.
4 side booster has been separated from the core stage.
And the first stage rocket
Beautiful.
separation. You see the 5 bright dots? Those
yeah,
are the
it's
4
beautiful.
side boosters and the one
And also the
stage
core
1
stage,
rocket.
the first stage is also
Core
already
stage rocket.
separated.
So now the astronauts should be feeling really comfortable, and they're they're making some movement. You can see.
Oh, they're waving to the camera. I'm
And
telling
the
the
next
team they're okay.
operation will be just jettisoning of the payload fairings.
I think that's the image of the stage 2 rocket engine.
Exactly. The
Coming
camera
up next-
mounted on towards the backward.
Right. Coming up next is the shutdown of the stage 2 rocket engine.
And there is only one main engine for the
Only
second
one
stage.
main engine
Okay.
and
Main
four
That's the
vernier
view
engines.
of the
one main
spacecraft,
engine
right?
and
That's
four
the-
more vernier engines. Vernier engines is to control the
All
attitude.
right.
Yeah, the
That's the
fairing.
jettison of the
Yeah,
fairing.
yeah.
That's the solar panel you're seeing. Which module is that? Is that the orbital module, service module? Service module. Is
It
it?
is separation of the payload fairings.
The fairing covers the service module as well as the capsule.
The camera, as you mentioned, is mounted on the I believe the propulsion module.
There you can see the Earth from the
Yes.
camera on the spacecraft.
Yeah, we can already.
The ellipse of
Such a
the
great
Earth.
visual,
Beautiful.
商场光学雷达跟踪正常。
So a series of fast maneuvers and status reports there.
So far-
9:26 a.m. Beijing time here. About 4 minutes into the flight, everything continues to look good.
They should be already 100 kilometers above Earth already. at this moment.
Wow, it's incredible to hear how fast the rocket.
The whole
is going.
process that before they are hitting the orbit, it just need like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, 580 seconds also.
Yeah, roughly 10 minutes. Yeah.
And the next critical step will be the shutdown of the main engine. And then it will work on the four vernier engines. Vernier engine can rotate in different directions to control the attitude. And finally, and can adjust the orbit to be accurate enough.
So this engine you're seeing from the screen is very important because it has to have a surgical precision of when to shut down, to eject that spacecraft into the precise altitude and position to catch up with the station.
And what's it like to endure so many G-forces? I guess we are going to hit the time when the crew will feel maximum G-forces before the second stage rocket shut down?
They've already passed the most inconvenient period.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, already. Because the thrust of the second stage is not very large.
Okay.
Only one engine, one main engine. Just before the separation of
And we really didn't notice much difference from their facial expression, from their body gesture. I guess they've been trained to endure such pressure.
we can see from the left screen that's the shows
3D
the data
animations.
link between the ground station and the vehicle.
And that animation is based on real-time telemetry. It's not a pre-made video. It's really showing you what's
Yes.
going on in real time.
This is the real camera.
Yeah.
And you can see the sky become dark because it's already in outer space. It's black, pitch black.
The bright part is the Earth, is the
Yeah.
horizon of the Earth,
And
very
there are
bright.
numerous cameras on this vehicle, and they have light on it to illuminate the rocket so that everything shows up on camera, and engineers can take a look at them, just in case of a problem or anything. They
Because it's already in almost a vacuum condition, so the vibration is not so intensive than the initial stage.
So this engine, the second stage engine has been designed for just one main engine and four extra engines. This kind of design was specially designed for the precise orbit entering.
It comes from the original design of the Long March 2 rocket. So we saved a lot of money by using the same engine on the first and the second stage, just a different configuration with vacuum condition. But still we need the four vernier engines. Vernier engine is much smaller than the main engine, but with these engines we can have an accurate adjust of the orbit.
Okay.
It's almost 9:30 a.m. We are almost about 8 minutes into the flight. And keep in mind that this is China's first crewed mission since 2016, nearly 5 years ago. It's also China's 7th crewed spaceflight overall in the past 18 years. Ground tracking staff are saying everything is normal, is going nominal. You just saw some bright orange flame there.
The main engine is shut down.
Shut down.
Now it's been shut down. Another critical step being completed.
So now those astronauts
Now they're
supposed to-
floating.
Oh, they're
Now
floating.
they're floating, so-
Now they're supposed to feel more comfortable.
They do look like they're a bit more at ease now. They're Looking at their flight manual.
We can hear from the voice that shows that the USB, the tracking, the video tracking, and also the optical cameras tracking very normal. So the vernier engine, the 4 vernier engines is still working to adjust its orbit very accurately.
Yeah, and they're looking out of the window. You can see the light from the window.
Yeah. This is a camera on board on the propulsion module.
Okay.
You can see the folded panels, the 4 pieces of panels on one side.
And coming up next will be the spacecraft separation.
Exactly. After the shutdown of the 4 vernier engines.
So in fact, they're fine-tuning their attitude
Yes.
and to make sure that it's facing in the right directions before they shut down and separate the engine.
Yeah.
Usually the separation is near the eastern coast of Shandong province.
How this spacecraft is gonna find the Tianhe core module in space? I mean, there's nothing that you can use to.
Well, there's so many things. I mean, there's signals that transmitting to each other. Their navigation systems, their BeiDou, they're communicating, and their ground crews are supporting. So this time the astronaut doesn't have to do too much, and it's going to be automatic, fast connection.
Yes.
The robotic just take care of
Automatic
everything.
rendezvous and
Yeah.
docking.
The Shenzhou-12 mission, once again, will last about 3 months in space, the longest stay in space to date by Chinese astronauts.
Oh, separation.
All right, you see the great separation of
stage is
spacecraft. The
Great.
second stage is drifting away.
Yeah, that's right.
So the next critical step will be the unfolding of the solar panels.
Solar panels. Wow.
So once the separation is done, the capsule and the service module has to adjust its own attitude.
Altitude.
And you can see the spacecraft, the full view of the spacecraft from that 3D animation, right? You can see the returning capsule in the middle, and then the orbiting module and the service module. Another great view of the Earth.
That's just the, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a video from the camera mounted on the spacecraft.
As we're just standing by for the deployment of solar panels.
Look at our home.
The voice says that the data link between the vehicle and the data relay satellite has
Yeah,
been
you can
established.
see there's a pin is floating.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you
They're
if you look
tossing
at
things
the
around.
Yeah.
look inside the
They are just
spacecraft.
There you
enjoying
have
the
it.
microgravity now.
I think the astronauts are just showing off to us.
There's one first timer.
Oh, they just won't let us know.
This is the first time for
I
Hongbo.
tell you that.
First time for Hongbo, so it's going to be an exciting journey.
All right. So this is the Shenzhou-12 mission, and this mission will involve a series of technical verification tasks related to the performance and function of the Tianhe core module. It will include extravehicular activity using EVA suits delivered by Shenzhou-12, the cargo ship, and the verification of the regenerative life support system. So everything's going to happen after 6 or 7 hours later, right? After they docking with the
exactly.
Tianhe core module.
And you can see the movement of the blue Earth around the spacecraft. So
Yeah.
it's
Just
really moving very nice.
amazing.
Great picture here.
That's right.
华山出轨根数及分离点参数发出，景山。
The voice tells
There
us
you see the deployment of solar panels.
Now the solar panel is
Yeah.
unfolding.
unfolded.
Great.
Major cheerings in
Normally
the
for
audience
satellite
now.
launch, this would be the success signal.
Oh, yeah.
So at this
There you
moment,
have
the
it.
spacecraft has continuous power supply.
That was, this is the June17 Satellite Launch Center. The image earlier was from Beijing. This is the June17 Satellite Launch Center once again.
So the guys who's responsible for rockets are relaxed. Their job is done. So now
Yeah.
it's up to the life support system.
That's also a relay race, right?
Yes, yes.
And this is from Beijing Aerospace City.
And It's a spacecraft right now in the same orbit of
Yeah,
the
it's the
Tianhe core
same
module.
altitude,
The same.
but they need to have final adjustment so that they can catch up with
At this moment, the Shenzhou-12 is in the same orbital plane of the Tianhe-1,
天路
but
1 号
with a
零
different
4
altitude.
跟踪正常，前反向数据收发正常。
Usually, the apogee is 200 kilometers, and the perigee is 200 kilometers, and the apogee depends on the control, and usually more than 300 kilometers high.
Up until now, everything is going well, but we don't want to call it too early. We are standing by for an official announcement from the launch team that's going to happen any moment from now.
We should confirm, as we already heard the voice, that the initial orbit parameters has been sent to the ground stations, but we still need to verify and checking the accurate orbital parameters, because you know that these orbital parameters must be accurate enough to ensure that it can have the chance to dock with the station.
Yeah.
So only in this moment we can announce the success of the launch.
So-
Not only launch into orbit, but still need to be accurate enough.
So lots of calculations there going on.
If it is
on the
not
ground.
accurate, it will waste a lot of propellants. So maybe not make it impossible to dock with the station.
So it will be taking a few burns before we catch up. So it's going to be using the apogee and perigee as well as the inclination to catch up with the station. So at the precise point, it will burn the engine to lift the altitude of the Shenzhou, so it can have a precise alignment with the Tianhe.
Usually we have 5 to 6 orbit maneuvers before
长
docking
程
with
报
the
告，座
station.
舱环境正常。
And it will be done automatically.
神舟12
Oh, the,
All
manu-
depends
the
on
maneuver,
vehicle.
the orbit maneuver will be.
So this the ground staff will be more relaxed because it will be done by the vehicle itself.
座舱环境正常，可以
But also the
打开面
astronauts
窗
could kick in to maneuver
Usually,
like that.
no, this will be not because you know that it will be calculated in the onboard computers, not by the astronauts. Only in some emergency cases, the astronaut can do something.
Oh, they
Oh,
are
they're
Oh, they're waving
opening
hands to
their
us.
helmets.
Hello.
They're waving to cameras. Well, a way of telling our team there they're okay,
长
and
江
another
6
way of
号
saying
跟
thank
踪
you.
正常。
Yes, just now we have just heard that the capsule itself has a good environment to open the helmet.
That is perfect.
So
It's,
this means that for the third time, Mr. Nie Haisheng visited the outer space.
Yeah.
He becomes the second astronaut in China, just after Jing Haipeng, who have achieved 3 missions.
3 missions. Battery.
impressive.
And it's
And
gonna
we're
be
about
Salute to the battery.
16 minutes into the flight.
So the person who stays in space for the longest period of time, that would be his record.
You can see Tang Hongbo and Liu Boming, who's sitting beside the window
They're
looking
watching out
yeah,
through the window.
enjoying, take it all in. The majestic view.
As I mentioned,
But
it
Nie
is the
Haisheng-
most favorite thing of the astronauts.
Yes.
Just enjoy the
发
view
电
of
正
the Earth.
常，
And it seems the solar panels working properly.
各号注意，我
Oh,
是
you
北
can
京。
actually hear the astronauts
Yes.
talking to each
They're
other.
talking about velocity 7.8, 7.9. That means
神
kilometers
舟
per
12号
second.
飞船已进入近地点高度200
They're
公里，
looking at their own speed.
远地点高度
Yeah.
348公里，倾角41.3度，周期1小时30分钟的预定轨道。太阳帆板展开，飞船工况正常，航天员状态良好。北京出轨根数及分离点参数已向各方向发出，后续工作按照正常计划实施。东风
Talk to us what we
Huashan.
just heard there. A series of
We
status
heard
reports.
that the initial orbit, the perigee is
Tianhe.
200 kilometers, and the apogee is 345
Tianhe.
kilometers, which means that it's a little bit lower than than our station. This also means, as Yan Song has mentioned, it will circulate the Earth faster than the Tiangong, Tianhe, and it can act as a chasing vehicle.
To move- to
with
move
several
a little
orbits,
up.
it can go closer to the station. So after they close to within the distance of 52 kilometers, the long distance guidance will be ended, and then they will depend on the relative measurements, as I mentioned, the microwave radar, the LiDAR, and also the optical sensors to achieve the automatic docking.
So they also mentioned about the inclination 41 degrees, and they also mentioned about the route parameters. The route parameters is for the vehicle to maneuver, and based on that route parameters, and all the ground control team has to know that exact number to know where to start with. So that's all the report, which means basically means it's a good and successful launch.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. Based on those data, how good of a launch was it?
Well,
A lot of jargon going on.
So far, so good, yeah.
But of course, we're still waiting for the official announcement coming from the launch team.
Yeah, with the route number, these guys are starting to crunching the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, another view
I
of
just noticed
Space
that.
City.
Yeah, and I just noticed that all of this, the astronauts, can they open up their helmet right now?
Yeah, they have
They have
already.
already did that.
张志芬主任宣布发射结果。
Now they're going to announce the
北
launch
京礼拜
results.
各号注意收听。
Okay. Here we have the command of this mission. Let's
各位
listen
领
in.
导，
Honorable leaders,
根据
comrades,
北京航天飞
according
行
to
控
the
制中心
report
通
from
报
the， Beijing Aerospace
长
Control
征2
Center,
号 F 112
Long
火箭
March 2 FY
已
12
将
rocket
神舟12号
has
载
sent
人飞船
Shenzhou-12
准确
manned
射入预定
spacecraft
轨
to
道
the preset
帆
orbit.
板展开
The solar
工
panel
作正
unfolded
常
functionally
我宣布
well and
神舟
also
12号
successfully.
发射
I
任
now
务
declare the
取得
launch of
圆
Shenzhou-12
满成
mission
功
a complete success.
北京东风报告，发射结果宣布完毕。
北京礼拜。
There you have it. Zhang Zhifen, director of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, officially announcing that the mission is a success. Once again, the launch mission is a success.
东风明白，
华山。
That's a great morning.
Great morning indeed.
Great morning.
江一明白。
A great
No.
moment for the construction of the Chinese space station. So
That's
it's a
right.
milestone event.
Oh, there you see Vice Premier Han Zheng shaking hands with engineers. This is at the Beijing Aerospace City. They're watching the launch there very closely.
So after 5 years, we now have astronauts in space.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah. For 3 months, at least.
Yeah. The space flight mission duration is going to set the new record for China, right?
Yes, and then also they're going to be continuing with the second batch of astronauts. We're going to see occasion of 6 working together in outer space and in our outer post in space.
So what time can we expect it for the next time? For the next
Well, next
cruise?
one would be, I think, cargo launches and to resupply with the. With
Here
more-
are senior military officials at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Another round of handshakes congratulating on the engineers of a successful launch. They deserve it.
Yes. After all of these years' hard work.
We usually call this a big red screen.
Big red screen. That's
Every
good.
time we hope that we have a big red screen to
That's right.
celebrate.
Once again, that was the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, congratulating the engineers there, Mr. Xu Qiliang, shaking hands with engineers. All right, there you had it, a successful launch. And now the Shenzhou-12 spacecraft is in orbit, is expected to dock and rendezvous with the Tianhe core module of the Chinese space station in about 6 to 7 hours' time.
Yes.
And we're going to continue to monitor the situation and bring
Right.
you live coverage of that as well.
That's right.
So let me talk to our guests about it. What an extraordinary 15 minutes or so flight we've just witnessed. I mean, having devoted both of your careers to the space industry, how do you feel right now?
Actually speaking, I was very nervous. You see that we have some improvement as we have already discussed on the Shenzhou spaceship. On our space field, especially for the engineering, any modification is risky. So we must check if everything is okay. So although you know that the Shenzhou-10 mission is the first operational or applicational mission for China's manned space program, so at that moment the Shenzhou spaceship has already have its final shape and final configuration. But still, after Shenzhou-10, Shenzhou-11 and Shenzhou-12 missions have their own modifications and improvements. We've already discussed some configurations, the modifications, and also especially we have some modification on the docking mechanism. You know that during the years before, we only need to dock between two spacecraft with a mass about 8 tons. But today, you know that the Tianhe is more than 20 tons. In the future, if our station is extended, it can reach to a combination about 180 tons, much bigger. So the compact will be much more serious than the missions before. We must test that and check that it is okay. So we have all kinds of modifications, although only some small modifications, but still we must ensure everything. So I'm really nervous during this launch, although we've already practiced several times.
How do you feel,
Yeah,
Mr.
tell us
Xu?
about your feeling,
Well,
Mr.
it's
Xu.
just like goosebumping. I mean, every time there's a launch, in particular manned missions, I feel very excited and very nervous, especially during the initial, let's say, 60 seconds. That is a really critical moment for a successful mission. And once you see you can see the radical improvement in terms of technology that we use and the cameras that we use. We used to see a very blind view for launch. Now you can see from different perspectives, from the strap-on booster to the second stage, and even the final stage of the rocket, you can see a camera separating, and also so everything is on video. It's like
Yes.
it's like a TikTok in space.
That's right.
It's very exciting to me, and I feel you know the space sectors has good innovation in technologies, and I do look forward that they have a good rendezvous and docking to the station where they can perform all the missions and maneuvers in store for them in the station.
Yeah, this is history being made, absolutely. And now we have a recap of the successful launch of the Shenzhou.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, the China Space Station program has been involved in so many international cooperation, and it's been involved so many the international scientists. For some of that, we're now joined by Professor John Murthy, and he's a senior professor from Indian Institute of Astrophysics, the Spectroscopic Investigation of Nebular Gas Project, or SING, led by his team, has been selected as one of the 9 science experiments aboard the China Space Station. Welcome to the show, Professor. Please tell us more about your program and why this experiment has to be done in the space.
Well, what we do is we're looking at ultraviolet astronomy. And ultraviolet astronomy, the trouble from the ground is that all the UV from the space is blocked by the Earth's atmosphere, the ozone layer. So in order to look at this region of the spectrum, the ultraviolet, we have to go out into space. What we do in particular is that we look for emission from interstellar gas. So you get things like supernovae remnants. This is lots of hot gas, and they'll have these lines, atomic and molecular lines, in the ultraviolet. So that's what we will observe from the space station.
Yeah, tell us the more details about this. What those emissions, information about the emission of those atoms and molecules in the outer space can tell us about what kind of the secret of the space can be revealed through your experiments.
Sure. So most of the pictures that you see are made from cameras. So you get a very nice overview of what that region looks like. But when you want to look at the physics of what's happening, when you want to look at things like the abundance, how much of that gas is there, when you want to look at a temperature there, whether it's 100 degrees or 10,000 degrees or 1,000,000 degrees, all of that comes from these spectra, where you look at individual atomic emission lines. So So you might see things like 3 times ionized carbon, carbon-4, and you will see an emission line from that. Now, if you have a camera, you don't get to differentiate the different elements. But because we have a spectrograph, what we will do is we will see the carbon over here, we might see oxygen over here, nitrogen over here. And so this is a way for us to tell what is in that space. We can tell the temperature, we can tell the pressure, we can look at how much of it is there. And all of this can only be done with a spectrograph. Now, the main problem we have is that because we're on the space station, we're actually mounted to the space station. So as the space station goes around the Earth, we'll scan the sky. We don't get to choose where we point, we just point in one direction. So we still have to see what we will actually observe, but there should be lots of interesting areas in the sky that we'll get.
Thank you so much, Professor Murphy, for being with us today, and good luck to your experiments in the outer space.
Thanks, Professor. Now, CGTN spoke with French astronaut Michel Tacnini, the former head of the astronaut division at the European Astronaut Center, and he talked about China's space program and the cooperation between China and Europe.
Well, the Chinese space program is really nice. I think it's a new program, and they use a classical rocket and a classical spacecraft, similar to the Soyuz. We call it the Shenzhou. And so far, it's the first space agency compared to the Russian and American space agency. It's the first space agency that did the whole pattern of access to space without any accident. So they flew with 1 taikonaut, then they flew with 2 taikonaut, they flew with 1 spacecraft, 2 spacecraft. They did the docking rendezvous system, and they did the first space station, second space station, and then third space station. So they are on the path to go to the moon and to go to Mars very quickly because they're very safe, and they use a reliable system, and they use also lessons learned from the big space agencies. So the cooperation between the European Space Agency and the Chinese Space Agency started already 15 years ago. I remember when they came to visit the European Astronaut Center in Cologne. At the time, I was the head of the center, and we started slowly this cooperation. And so far, today, we have a real nice cooperation between taikonaut and astronaut. So the taikonaut are coming regularly for 2 weeks training time in Cologne at ESC, and the European astronauts are also going to travel to Beijing for training on the Chinese Space Center, and we have already 2 or 3 European astronauts speaking Chinese very well. So we are on the good path for a nice cooperation with human people, and also I believe that one day a European will fly on the Chinese space station or the Chinese moon space station.
And now we're joined by another guest, Zhang Hu, the project scientist of the Shenzhou-12 Survey Space Telescope, and which will also be deployed with the China Space Station in the future. So as China's first space station telescope, tell us about this progress made so far and what its role shall be on the China Space Station. Mr. Zhang.
So we have this survey space telescope. It's as you know, it's a major science project of China Manned Space Program. It's also one of the 14 systems of China Manned Space Program. Now, the science payloads and research are also part of the space application system. Now, we are in usually the space projects will go through 3 phases after approval, between approval and launch. The first phase will be the design phase, and then development phase, and then qualification and production phase. We are now in the second phase.
Okay.
Now, the second phase, in the second phase, we'll build a number of models. The most important one will be the qualification model, and it will be subject to rigorous tests to verify its performance. And we expect to complete the qualification model next year. So the telescope will be orbiting in the same orbit as the space station. So that means it can be serviced by the space station. During normal operations, it will be far apart from the space station. But when it's needed, it can fly closer to the space station and dock with the space station. And then it can be serviced, we can refill it, and can upgrade instruments on the telescope.
All right, so actually this telescope is not attached on the space station, but they just are flying together in the same orbit. So, well, tell us more about whether the Shuntian telescope's mission and what scientific operations can we expect from it.
So the telescope will be launched with 5 first-generation instruments. That includes a survey camera, a terahertz receiver, multi-band imaging, multi-channel imager, an integral field spectrograph, and a co-planet imaging chronograph. These are 5 instruments. The most important task for this telescope is to carry out a very long.
It seems we lost the signal, but thank you so much. That's Professor Zheng Hu, the leading scientist for the Shuntian Space Telescope. Let's get back to our studio guest.
What a day for China's space industry. This is a mission 29 years in the making, right? And some say being part of China's space program is like on board a express train. How do you make of that?
Yes, you know that we have a continuous, slow but steady step to have our own station. Today we have our dream have come true. I can still remember during the live coverage in 2011, my first cooperation with CGTN. At that moment, Mr. Zhou Yue mentioned that today we are one step closer to have our own space station. And today it becomes true.
Here we are.
Yes, exactly. And this afternoon or this evening, when our astronauts go inside the station, they will enjoy their lives in our station. I believe that will be more exciting moment for all of us.
And what will be their first major tasks when they, can complete the dock and rendezvous and got into the space station?
I think first thing is to flip the switches. They have to turn on the station and make sure that the connections are successful, and they have to do some, like Yuguang said, the hibernation of the capsule, and then they open the cargo ship, and they take out all the necessary stuff, and they, I think, dig in is one of the things. They have to start feeding themselves. So lots of things to look forward. I think they get changed, and they get comfortable with the station. So that's the first thing they will do. And they also have to synchronize with the ground crew on their working schedules and working times. So a synchronized working time, not to work overnight, is also another thing to do. So they have to turn in at the appropriate time. So they have a few hours in preparation. So quite a few things to do. Do the undressing and do the
change into that penguin suit.
Open the deliveries. Yes.
So it's more of a, it's like moving into a new house and set up everything.
Exactly.
Wow.
Now I think their living apartment is not fully functional, right? So they're first to stay.
Their job is to build their own home. I mean,
yes.
This is the first segment. The Tianhe is the only the core module, and they have to perform a number of missions to renovate and to build their own home, and they're looking forward to have the second and third fuselage, as well as more cargo ships to come and dock with the station. So they are the very first crew to see everything from the very beginning. So they're going to do their job during this 3 months period, including EVA activities, assembly, integrating, and testing of all facilities. Make sure that the very crucial point.
The history being made right here, as we say, exploring the universe, exploring the boundary of the universe is the shared dream for mankind, right? Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us here for our coverage. And Shenzhou-12 spacecraft, as we speak, is now in orbit. In the next few hours, about 6 to 7 hours, it will complete its rendezvous and docking with the Tianhe core module of the Chinese space station. And when that happens, CGTN will bring you full coverage on here, right here.
We're going to keep you updated. So China successfully launched its first manned mission for the building of the space station earlier this morning, and with 3 astronauts on board. And before we go, let's take a look back at the key moments.
And thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.